everyone, this is McKenna. Welcome back to Crack Cinnamon episodes. This is a continuation of episode 7, which was titled Trust. So this is Trust Part 2. I did say this topic is quite wide, and I'll break it down in a few sessions or other parts, so that it's all not in one chunk, which is, not easy to digest and also not easy to understand. And I've also come to realize trust has different layers. So, we need time to actually go through it. And as I'm learning and researching, I'm finding out a lot more concerning trust. So today what I want to focus on is trust between parents and children. We looked at last time, we already established that trust is the basis for all relationships, all the kinds of relationships human beings form. So I thought a way that I can demonstrate this, I can show this really, is to look at where it all starts in the home. When a child is born, that's where they start learning to trust or not to trust people, basically. And I've learned a lot now as a new mom, basically, that truthfully, trust is learned. Even my 4-month-old daughter is showing me that, and I'll explain, because psychology actually shows that everybody learns trust. It's not something that comes innately. You don't trust automatically, even though people kind of argue that, say, babies trust their parents. But no, I have actually seen it with my own child. I've had to develop the trust rather, as the weeks have gone by, and now she trusts when I do certain things. She knows that mommy will come back or do this or will do that. And even though she does not talk, it's become, she can learn through the behavior, and she can learn through the practices we form, through the routine we have, which is very fascinating, actually, to think. And actually, I'd not thought about it myself. I'd not really sat down and analyzed it until I decided that I'm going to talk about this topic. So where does it all start? I mean, as the baby's in the womb, they already start to form that bond. They hear the mother's voice. They get to understand, this is what's happening, what's outside as well. If they come from a 2-parent home as well, they hear the voice of the dad or whoever else is raising the child. And for example, if it's in a setup, who will raise the child? Not at the moment, because he or she's in the womb, but in the sense, like, for example, those who come from homes whereby there's like a grandmother, or it's a guardianship kind of situation. So it's quite interesting to actually see it from a child's point of view. And why is it important for them to learn how to trust? Because honestly, the results are devastating. If they don't trust, they become insecure, they become untrusting people, and it really affects them forming other relationships in their adult life. And you can see society, it's like a cycle, basically. You can see if they didn't learn to trust, if there was trust issues when they were growing up, definitely that has an effect on whether they'll have trust issues in the relationships they form, whether if they get the future, they have children, how also that they interact with their kids. It's also, an indicator. So I was basically trying to understand this concept of trust in children, and I read an article. It's quite fascinating. It was published in 2016, and it is based in Russia. And these people who carried out the research took a sample of kids from preschool, and then children in primary school, and then teenagers, okay? And they basically put them through different examinations to test what their perception of trust is and the way they think their parents cope in conflict and where there's trust issues. And actually, I didn't know this, but according to this article, it's science-based, this article, and it's within the early years education setup. It's quite fascinating. If you're interested, I might actually post it on our social media pages for you to have a read. And it actually starts off saying that, Russia is a low-trusting country. I didn't know there were things like that. I didn't know there were countries gauged by trust. But anyway, and all this really is because of the Soviet Union days. So because of how things were and how difficult things were, even post Soviet Union and all this, it still created a mistrust in people, because even how they view government, how they view each other, it's not in a very trusting way. They always say, Russians have this terminology, you have to be cautious in all your relationship, you can't just trust, which is quite interesting. So this study, they looked at so many things, and actually the preschoolers defined trust as, parents helping them with games, parents listening to them, sharing of toys. So for them, it was mainly from a parental side. For the ones in primary school defined trust as, being able to share information with somebody you trust and confide in them, being able to get information accurately. So already they are defining trust in terms of having a friend, so in friendship. So they're already establishing that trust is important in friendship. And then in teenagers, were asked a more difficult question, which was, how do you establish trustworthy relationships? And that was quite fascinating to read as well. And some of them were saying, if they get reliable information, if the information is accurate, if they confide in someone, so it's quite interesting. Then they were asked about coping strategies, and the preschoolers were saying, I throw things, and those in the teenagers actually were more, it was very dark in how they saw it. They saw described like how they saw their parents coping was most of the time that their fathers were not there, or their mothers would yell a lot. So that was their way of coping, and probably it also affected them, because they're saying, if I feel like there's no trust, this is what I do, So I found that article very interesting, and it made me reflect on my own relationship with my parents. And it's quite interesting because my mother's career took her outside the country most of the times, so I hardly used to see her. And when she was around, she was more connected with my brothers. So fine. And I remember I said in the first episode, or I think second, that actually I'm from a family of many boys. I don't have sisters, so my mother was the first female I knew. But I don't know what happened. In my formative years, something changed, because all of a sudden I stopped going to confide in her, and I started confiding in my father. And when I grew up is when my parents actually explained, when we were younger, when I was a baby, when my mother went back to work. And even when she was not working, my father was so heavily involved in raising us, in playing with us, in, singing to us and all this. So there is where I formed the bond with him, and I saw him as the parent to trust. And it's quite interesting because I don't have that memory and I don't know it, but it's somewhere lingering in the back of my mind. And it's now as a parent, I'm very cautious about this concept and how I relate with my daughter, because it's in the playing, it's in when I'm feeding her, when I'm changing her, even though she might not fully understand and comprehend everything, but I am being intentional. If I say to her, I'll be back, I'll be back. She'll, she might not understand what I'm saying, but she will see my face. I'm not just letting her cry, because that's not building her trust levels with me, actually. And I don't want a negative impact in her life, okay? So it made me think, so how can we foster what's good ground, or rather environment for trust to take place? What can you do as a parent? One, I think, from all observations I've seen, is to be present. Just be present as a parent. Be present. If you said you're going to take them to a game, take them. If you said you'll show up for their plays, show up. Because children learn from observation, okay? And if you can't be a person of your word, then don't expect them also to be reliable, because you've shown them you're not reliable. So one of the things you can do to help them also understand what trust is validate their emotions. You might not agree exactly how you're feeling, but you can ask them, how does that make you feel? What this situation happened, how does that make you feel? Help them to recognize the emotion they're actually feeling. So ask them, what is happening? How do you feel? What is this that's causing you to cry, to be upset, and all these things? So when you recognize, then you validate by actually saying, I can imagine that made you feel very sad, okay? And also approach the situation from a very neutral place, not saying, there's sometimes as parents, we almost like you're giving sides, especially for those who have multiple children. It's like saying, oh, you believe this other one before the one who appears wounded. You've already gone to their corner, but maybe it's not them who is wounded, it's the other party. So always approach the situation from a neutral point. And then the other thing I thought would be useful would be actually show them by example. Like I said, sometimes they'll have to have a front view of your life as a parent. If you're co-parenting, sometimes let them see what's happening behind the scenes. I'm not saying be very open with everything and all the fights, let them see. No, but they will see how you trust your partner, you trust if you have siblings, business partners, they'll see it, show them a glimpse of that, and then they'll learn from that. And then the other thing is, for those who have teenagers, it's hard. I know you have to keep the boundaries there. You have to balance the freedom of giving them the onus to make their own decisions, and at the same time bring back the restraints. But honestly, you have to let them make the decisions and be okay with the ultimate decisions. So what you have to do is limit the options they have, okay? So if you're saying you can go either to the cinemas today, tomorrow, or you can do this, or you can do that, or you can... So if whatever choice they make, you have to be okay with that, because you already offered the options. So don't give options and then not happy with what your teenager picks. That defeats the purpose, So and and then help them through their adversity, to help them when they make wrong choices, support them in during that time. Yes, they've made the wrong decision, and usually teenagers will, but support them in that. Yeah, you will tell them, okay, this was wrong and all these things, but I hope you've learned from this. This is what you can do. And I remember when I first started dating, I was just post-teen, literally, as and I remember all the things I went to my father, and I was saying, okay, this is what worked, didn't work. And he was like, it's okay. There are some things I did tell you that, to look out for, but it's okay. That's how you learn. That's how you know what kind of boys you like. And I like that approach. I really like the support I got from him. And I'm glad I did, because all other relationships now, I went to him and I said, this is not working. This, I don't know this, because he'd opened that channel. Okay. He'd already shown me he can support me in a difficult situation. And also with trust, I guess it's the positive environment, though I don't like using this positive. It can, positive is relative, but it's creating and fostering that environment where your child feels safe to tell you things, share with you, demonstrate. Because I remember the first thing actually that was devastating that happened in my life, I think I was 6 or 7, and when I told my parents, they didn't believe me. In fact, they said I'd made it up, and they sent me to my room and told me to never talk about it, and that crushed me, because I suffered so much after that, and this situation got worse and worse, and it's not even affecting my life still. But had they listened to me, had they believed me, it would have been a different story. So believe your children, and there are ways to investigate or find out if what your child is saying is true. And that's why, even in the school setup system, if there's abuse or they're being bullied, or if they feel there's trust in the home, they'll come and tell you. And they will expect you as well to protect them. And that's why, trust and expectations go hand in hand. So we have to be careful. So I hopefully we've learned something from this episode. And I thank you for joining me for this episode. Then I'll have another part 3. Not another part 3, but there'll be part 3 of this conversation, looking at trust, and we'll look at trust in a relation terms of dating and being married. So thank you very much for tuning in. Again, share this podcast with your friends, with your relatives, with your networks. Let's grow the family. Keep giving the feedback. Keep the conversation going. This is a platform to share conversations and just learn from each other and grow and be better people. Remember, be the one. Thank you. See you in the next episode.